Hey, friend, welcome back to another episode of the Stop the Starving Artist podcast. I almost said that like with an Irish accent. I can't even do an Irish accent. That's how crazy that was to me. But it is good to see you here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be honest, I am a little bit like dragging right now. I just got out of a whole bunch of consultations, and so I'm in the midst of like trying to get back on track and build up the energy here for you guys today. And I thought about full blown like skipping today's podcast, but I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to show up and do the deal because that's what we're supposed to do, right? But I want to talk about that idea of the feeling of I got to show up, like that feeling just flipping like lives in this spot in our minds and in our hearts, that like when we're trying to build something, when we're trying to build an audience and we're trying to do something with our creativity that's different, right? Where we want to stand out. We want to start to like make some money doing work that we actually care about. Everybody's telling us we got to be everywhere. You got to be on all the social media platforms. You got to be doing all the stuff. You got to have the best content, all the things. And so that looming thought burns in the back of our brain that says, if you don't show up today, it's all going to implode. It's all going to change. Nobody's going to show up to the next one. If you don't post that video, then why even do another one? If you don't go to the gym, why should you even care, right? And so Ingrid's here in the chat. Hey, Ingrid, she says #consistency. And I want to talk about this idea of consistency and how I'm thinking about it right now in terms of my life and how I'm trying to balance this concept of like creativity and business and the things that mattered the most to me. And I think that last part is like the thing that really I'm going to hit on the most here. And I'm going to talk about some exercises that I'm doing to really try to keep me focused in the places that matter, right? And I want to remind you guys, like, this is pretty off the cuff. I tried to plan some stuff and I was like, no, it doesn't matter. Like I'm just going to go for this thing and see what happens. And the reason that I wanted to do that, so it's my 7-year-old's birthday this last weekend, and we were sitting on the couch at the end of her birthday, and she said, Daddy, I just want to tell you thank you for the best day ever. And I can't even tell you what that meant to me. The fact that she was like so intent on telling me as a 7-year-old, like, thank you for the best day ever. And we didn't have a party. We didn't have friends over. We didn't do anything like crazy. We literally gave her, I think, 3 or 4 gifts, and like 3 of those were like articles of clothing. And that hit me so hard with such a weight of, when we have ourselves in the place of, I'm going to show up, but I'm going to show up in the right way. And I'm going to show up when it matters the most, when it is the thing that really needs to happen in that moment, things can change. And I think that, the thing that my wife and I talked about, if we just kind of skirt it back to the night before, we were sitting around the table and we had our gifts planned out. And she's like, wait, I don't think we have enough. Like, I honestly feel kind of guilty about this. And I was like, no. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a gift scavenger hunt. We're going to hide them around the house, like figure out all the ways that she can come out and find this stuff, right? And she's like, great. That sounds really awesome. Thanks. Like, let's do this. So we set it all up, write out the paper, and we go to bed. And I wake up in the middle of the night, and my wife is like feeling all this guilt. Like, I haven't shown up for my kids the way I want to. I feel like I need to be doing more. What's happening? And, it was just this really intense moment for her. And so I was like, babe, I'm trying to sleep. Just like, that's awful. But in my head, I couldn't relate to it. But then what's crazy is I woke up in the morning and was a wreck, like an emotional wreck, feeling the same things. Like I'm letting my, the moment for me is I remember when we had our daughter and she was like 3 and my wife was nannying. And I remember she nannied a girl that was 7 and I was like, oh, well, we've got time. And now 7 was kind of the mark where I'm like, we don't have time anymore. Like things have changed. Now the time is very different. And so it hit me really differently. So that whole day I showed up for her and I approached it in a way that was balanced. I didn't pick up my phone. I made sure that I gave her the attention when she asked for it. And at the end of the day, that's all she wanted, was an opportunity for us to connect deeper and to give her time. And so now all this week, I've been doing little things with both the girls where I'm like, you want to go to lunch together? You want to do this? Like, let's just carve out 30, 40 minutes to just hang out, just you and me, or the 3 of us, or whatever. And my days have felt so much slower and so much more imbalanced, not imbalanced. And the reason I tell this story is because I think it's important, because we look at all of what we do. We look at the things we want to grow. We look at all these things and we put them in categories of like, there's the urgent thing that we need to do right now to make sure that we get more followers on our Instagram account or more subscribers on our YouTube channel or more people on our email list. Like, this is me, right? These are the things that I need to do to make sure that happens. And that includes making content, showing up, doing this live stream once a week, like, doing things on Instagram, like whatever it is. It's just, there's so much that we feel like we need to do. And so that weighs on me. And so all day I'm balancing my regular job working at a company called Video Creators, where we actually help people with their YouTube channels. So I'm doing that. I'm doing consultations, doing all this other stuff. And then I have to find time to like balance that with my own business that I'm trying to build and do things for you guys and like make videos and do this other stuff. And then I have my wife and kids and all these other things. And so by the time that I hit 5 or 6 o'clock, I'm just exhausted. And I'm like still in this mode of I didn't get the thing done that I wanted to get done. And if you're like me, you felt that a lot recently. You're like, you either feel like you're just letting things fall to the wayside and you don't end up finishing them, or you're just literally like procrastinating and putting it off because it feels really daunting. And then the higher that things pile up, the more daunting it gets. And then the less that you do, guilty as charged, right? So we may be falling into a couple of these camps. And so the thing that I'm really trying to do to rebalance and recalibrate is to just increase my mindfulness, because there are things that are important and urgent, and there are things that are not so urgent, but are incredibly important. And when you have kiddos, there's something that reminds you of life is short. We get very little of this time. And if there's anything that my children do to me, it's remind me that every day I'm getting older and every day something's changing. And every day I'm reminded like life is short. We don't get a lot of this. And so I'm looking more and more recently into this, the things that are the most important but aren't necessarily the most urgent feeling. But how do we do that and still balance the stuff that we want to accomplish, our businesses, growing those things? I'm going to be honest, I don't know yet. This is something I'm like still working on, and I'm doing it very poorly a lot of days. Let's see who's here. Hey, my name is Lewis, and I have a question. Okay, coming into that, Lewis. I'm going to get your question, I promise. So please just hang tight. Yeah, that's so meaningful, and then they know they're important. They are. Yeah, and that's really it. It's like we just want people to just see how important they are to us. We want everything to see the importance that it has in our lives. And I think what we have to do is just start to be more in the moment of whatever's happening. One of the biggest things that I heard somebody say to me, and I have like a faith background, and so we were having this discussion about how do we balance this stuff? Because a lot of times things feel really like I need to do this, but then it also feels like does this even really matter? Like, it doesn't matter that I'm doing this YouTube channel. Does it matter that I'm like helping people at what does it matter in the end? I'm just going to die. I'm just going to die anyway. These are the dark thoughts that go through my brain sometimes. So I'm sorry if I'm like TMI here, but this is true. Like, this is what I battle with. And one of the best things that I heard somebody say was, he said, it was my friend Jeff. He said, listen, here's the thing we have to remember. I believe that it is our duty as people to show up for other people. And I think it's our duty to be as in the moment as we possibly can, with every intention of being interrupted. We have to be ready for that interruption and understand that in the scheme of life, that interruption may very well be the thing that you are intended to do that day. That blew the flippin' lid off my brain, because I was like, that is so true. How is it that when I set aside the fact that I may not get an Instagram post up, but I spend a little extra time with this person to serve them better, or I do something over here to spend more time with my kids, or whatever it is, that ends up being the most rewarding moment of the day. And that's the thing that I go and I talk to my wife about, or I have conversations with when it comes to people later. I'm not talking to people about the fact that I sat down and made 15 pieces of content. That's not something that I ever communicate. Nobody nobody gives a shit about that, right? Like, nobody cares that we've sat down and had to plot out all these video ideas, and that you don't really care that I worked to the last minute to publish the video that I put out yesterday, and it took a lot of time and effort to make it happen, and I had to fit it into all, ultimately that doesn't matter. What matters is where I come from and why I want to do these things, and what's the intention behind all of it. And so I think that idea of being prepared to be interrupted while also being really mindful of where we're at in the moment is really valuable. And I just loved that sentiment and that thought. And there was also, there's something that I believe it's the Stoics, they think of it this way, where it's if you're rushing to the next thing, if you're rushing toward the next thing, what are you doing except rushing toward your death? Holy cow. I just realized all my weeks have been going so fast. Everything I've been doing, by the time I get to the weekend slows down, but the week goes so fast. And why? Because I try to accomplish so much, and I put so much pressure on the accomplishment side of it, that I forget to slow down and see what I've accomplished. I forget to slow down and accomplish something that means more in that time frame. And it's been just a weight that's on me, that I just wanted to share it. Mary says, it's important for me to remember that it's literally never done. I find myself chasing a finish line that is ever vanishing. So why miss things to consistently rush through that race? Yeah, that's exactly it. It is never done. It's never going to be done. It's never going to be perfect. And this idea of showing up consistently, I think, can be something that is malleable, right? Where, yeah, I should strive to do these at 5 p.m. every Wednesday. But I had a consult that went up to 5, right? And I needed to give her a little extra time. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this a little later today, right? Because I know that that's what I'm here to do, is to serve somebody. And I didn't get an Instagram posted today, but I was like, you know what? I'm posting content on the YouTube channel today. I'm going to get to show up for those people there. And that is something, right? So I'm showing up in some way. And then tomorrow, the idea is different. I'm supposed to spend the majority of the day watching my kids, and I have to be cautious on those days, because I know that my goal is to spend time with them, but I can easily get caught up in the work. But I have to be aware of showing up and being present in that moment is really important. So I'm gonna give you some things that I've been doing to kind of just, I don't want to go on forever about just me babbling on something. So I'm gonna give you some things that I'm doing to be more mindful in the moment, to try to make myself more present through my day. And I do hope that you'll find this helpful. You may hear my children at any given moment. They just walked into the apartment. So the first thing I do every day is I wake up and I meditate. And I meditate for about 10 minutes. And you're hearing a lot of people talk about meditation. I mean, I feel like I can't like spit on YouTube without hitting a meditation video or some sort of like person in the wellness and betterment space that's like talking about it. So I'm not trying to pretend that I'm any sort of guru in the situation. It is something I'm incredibly passionate about, and it's something that I want to talk more about, and it's something that I think is really important to us as people, not because of the act of it, but because of the thought, the starting to understand what it is to be able to focus on one thing in a moment, starting to be able to not think less, but realize when you're thinking about something. And so that kind of leads me to the second exercise that I do. So I wake up, I do 10 minutes of meditation, and then there's an exercise that I learned that I started doing that I've been sharing a little bit, where I literally go around, and if I see something, then I'll say seeing. If I hear something, I'll say listening. And when I'm doing this, I'm like listening, but I'm forcing myself to really listen to it, to like take it in and say, okay, this is what I hear. Here's what it is. Here's how I'm processing it. Here's what it makes me think of, right? And then the moment that it switches, maybe I'm feeling something. So I'll say feeling. And I'll look, and it's like the coffee cup in my hand, or I'm literally just stepping on the floor. And the goal here is that I'm an incredibly anxious person, so I take medication for anxiety, and so it's really difficult for me to not get down this rabbit hole of thoughts and self-judgment and anxiety. And I had something that kind of happened yesterday that freaked me out from like a bit of a medical perspective. It's nothing anybody needs to worry about, but it's like something that for me was like, what's happening here? That anxiety just triggers something and it changes something in me. So reminding myself what I'm experiencing has been huge. And I'm not good at this all the time, but man, it's been a big help. It's been a huge help. So I would encourage you guys to test that. Just try it. And you don't even need to do it all the time. I literally just, if I notice myself getting down this swirling pathway of thoughts, I'll try to remind myself to do that exercise, and that helps. And what I want you to see is that noticing of yourself feeling this, like, I got to do this thing has to happen. That noticing is actually a win, because when we don't notice and we don't address it, we don't think about it, and we don't move forward, that's actually the problem. So giving yourself that grace to like know, okay, I've noticed this, now I'm doing this exercise, doesn't need to be perfect. That's actually a huge win for the way that you start to show up and be more present in the day. So that's something that I've been thinking about a lot. And the third thing that I've been doing is really trying, and I'm not good at this yet, really trying to be intentional about putting my phone in a drawer at the end of the day. And I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and I was like, oh, that's great, cute, like good for you. This is really hard. This is really hard for me. And so, if I'm not doing it, it's fine. But what I know is that I can get a text, and that text will lead me to Instagram because I'll see a notification, and that Instagram will lead me to something else to where I realize I should have posted something, and then I want to do a story, and then I think about my YouTube analytics, and then my YouTube analytics remind me that I need to make next week's video, which then puts me onto Notion where I'm thinking about scripting. And I mean, I'm telling you, in like 15 seconds, I've gone through the whole gamut of what should be done by next week, and that is not healthy, because I'm not only neglecting that specific moment, but I'm not allowing myself to like really give full attention to the things that need to be made tomorrow or need to be made now. Like those actually deserve a lot more of our energy. And when we're wasting our energy like that, we're literally burning calories, and our energy is a commodity, or it's a resource rather. So it's something that if we're burning all that energy in these moments of just thinking and swirling and going through stuff, even on social media, we're literally taking away from the things that we need to make. So what I found is that on the days that I do really well at this, the next days, I tend to focus better on the stuff that I want to do, and I tend to get more done. And I'll also just allow myself like breaks to go for a walk for 20 minutes or just kind of hang out and like, get out of the apartment, just kind of like do something different. So let's see. Mary says, yeah, it's a great exercise because so many things that are important to us become invisible unless we specifically choose to actively see them. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And that's really it, is like when I started doing this, it just showed me so much about my day that I was missing. It's like, holy cow, like look at the freaking sky right now. It's incredible. It's there every day, right? But look how beautiful it is in this moment. Like I just noticed it. I finally noticed something. And we're so distracted right now. I am anyway, maybe you're not, I don't know. So then the last thing I did, I'll show you this. So I heard this recently, and this, like, honestly, I get kind of emotional just thinking about it, because this has been the crux of like a lot of what I'm thinking about right now and what I'm really trying to figure out. And it's as simple as this statement. So I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. It kind of went away. So it says, right now, it's like this. So if you're just listening to this, my phone has a screensaver that says, right now, it's like this. So what does that mean? Like when I screw up and I don't do the thing I want to do, or when I know that I should have gotten more done, or when I know that things seem scary in my life, but it may not actually be something that's happening, or I'm going down this like trail of like what I should have done, what I could have done, what could be better. Right now it's like this. And that's been so important to me recently. Like I can't even, this is only within like a week and a half that I've been thinking about this, but it's made these times where I'm just sitting in my chair and, and I'm like, again, in that rabbit hole of like, okay, I got to do this thing. I got to grow my business. I got to do this stuff. And I look over on the couch and, my kids are sitting there and one of them's telling me some gibberish story that I don't even understand. But I'm like, right now, it's like this. This is what it is right now. And this is incredible. Because just like the Stoic idea of, if we're just rushing to the next thing, what are we doing except rushing to our death? And I know that may seem dark to some people, but I actually find it incredibly beautiful. And I don't talk about this much, but I want to talk about it more, because my goal is to get to this place of, feeling completely comfortable that if somebody told me like, hey dude, you got a day left, that I would just be fine. I'd be like, okay, cool. I did it. Right. And that, to take it back to the story I told in the beginning, that I told my wife at the end of that day, that was the first day in a while where I was like, yeah, today I would be fine with it. And I don't hit it every day, but some days I do. And so I try to take those as wins and just keep moving forward. So I hope this is helpful for you guys. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot there. I know this is a bit of a heavier topic, so forgive me for that. I hope that it's cool. I do want to make sure that I hit this question here. If anybody else has any questions, then please feel free to ask them in the chat. I'll take a couple seconds here, or minutes if necessary, to answer these questions. So Lewis says, I have a question. I'm really interested in becoming a musician, but I have never created a song of my own. It's just so difficult to create something out of nothing. Any tips? It's not that difficult to create something out of nothing. It's difficult to live up to our, influences. I don't want to say expectations, because I think our expectations are set from our influence, right? What are the things that we look up to? That's difficult. It's difficult to create something that lives up to our influence. It's not difficult to create something out of nothing. And I would encourage you to get more and more comfortable with that idea. This is something I'm trying to figure out how to go back to. I've been listening to more like ambient music and different kinds of things that are a little left of center from the mainstream thing, and wanting to do more work sort of like in that realm. And so that's been a big thing for me, is like, how do I incorporate that into this brand, or this idea of helping creatives? And I know that it's a part of it somewhere. I just don't exactly know where yet. So I struggle with that too. But I would say the more comfortable that you can get with making things, and just like we talked about, right now it's like this. Right now it's not perfect. Right now it just is like this, and it's going to get better, and it's going to continue to move forward. Don't worry so much about like those unrealistic expectations of meeting our influence, especially in the beginning, because it just isn't going to happen. And as a matter of fact, the more that I think about creativity and like anything that really works and connects, it's not about how much it's like something else. It's how do you tie that thing to the person that's viewing it or seeing it or hearing it, right? So I hope that that makes sense. Acceptance is the key to all my problems today. Absolutely. Yeah. As we say in AA. Yeah, that's so good. So good. Cool. Well, Lewis, I hope that was helpful. All of you guys that are watching here, I hope that this has been helpful to you. Those of you that are listening afterwards, I hope that this is helpful to you. Please let me know in the comments, how you're feeling. What are you doing to stay mindful? What are you doing to be present in the moment? What are you doing to balance and seek balance in your life and in your work and those things that matter the most to you? Because I think it's important that we do that, because otherwise that's when burnout starts to happen. That's when we start to, feel that sense of other people start to get in the way. I'll say it that way, where if we feel this constant urgency and we can't meet it, then all of a sudden something has to be blamed for us not getting it done. And sometimes that ends up being the people that we care the most about. And that's a place we need to be cautious of. So being mindful, being in the moment, please let me know how you guys are dealing with that. Sending you guys tons and tons of love. And thanks so much again for showing up. And yeah, Lewis, glad you came. Thanks so much. Please come back. Bring a friend. Free admission every week. Wednesdays about 5 p.m. Central Time. And I will see you guys next time.